Hello and welcome to Curriculum and Beyond, your place for smart learning and easy understanding. Whether you're a student, teacher, or researcher, this channel is for you. We explain difficult topics with real life examples and go beyond the textbooks. Welcome. Don't forget to subscribe and enjoy learning.
Distinguished audience, you are welcome to our session on research methodology. Research is an activity of man's daily life, and as students, you need the knowledge to guide you as you do the practice. Now, we want to look at the meaning of research. Now, research is derived from two words, re and search. Re means again, and search is to look into. Research means looking again into a problem with the hope of finding solutions to them. Now, what is educational research? Educational research is looking again into problems that hinders teaching and learning with the hope of finding solution to them. Now, in the course of teaching, you normally encounter problems, and as a teacher or an educator, you need good knowledge of research in order to get at these specific problems, find solution to them so that your teaching can be more effective. Now, educational research is scientific in nature. This is because it has the characteristics of the nature of research. These characteristics are listed above. They are objectivity, verifiability, and repeatability. Now, educational research is objective in nature. Objectivity means that it follows a procedure that is never biased. In other words, a researcher must present his findings the way they are. He must not present something different from what he has collected in the form of data. 2. Verifiability means that a researcher must follow a procedure that is outlined to be followed in research. This will enable other researchers to be able to verify what you as a researcher has done in the past. The third one is repeatability. Now, when you carry out educational research, there are steps that you must follow. Now, these steps you follow must be religiously done with, so that any other person who wants to carry out research can follow the same steps and do exactly what you have done before. Now, we want to look at the various classes of educational research. Various classes of educational research. Now, there are two ways by which educational research types are classified. One of them is based on use of findings, and the other one is based on procedure. With time, we are going to add a third one, which is doing with what the researcher is doing, whether it's exploratory or experimental. Now, let us look at the use of findings. Now, when we carry out research, we use the outcome to solve problems or add to existing stock of knowledge. Now, based on what we use the outcome of research to do, we have the following types of research. One of them is basic research. The second one is applied research. And the third one is action research. Now, basic research is a research which the outcome is not used to solve any particular pressing problem. Examples are the kind of research you carry out to earn certificates and degrees For example, if you are an NCE student watching this presentation, at the end of your third year, you carry out a research which you document as projects. Now, that is an example of basic research. It is also known as pure research. The same thing with students who are doing first degree, masters, and PhD. The project you do in your first degree, the dissertation you do at your master's degree, the thesis you write at the PhD level, the outcomes are not used to solve any particular pressing problem. They only add to existing stock of knowledge. Now, these types of research are called basic or pure research. Now, the second one is applied research. You carry out such research to solve a particular pressing problem. For example, you want to carry out research on how you can improve the performance of students in science, and you are dwelling on the Osobel Advanced Organizer. Now, if you apply that into teaching and you find that the application brings about improvement in students' learning, you can now factor it into your process of teaching in order to improve student performance. The action research is the third type. This one, I liken it to a committee work. Maybe in an organization there is an existing problem and a committee is set up. They carry out research by collecting data, do the analysis, and make recommendations based on their outcome. Now, when such findings are used to solve problems, it can be called action research. Now, the second way by which we classify research is based on design. Research design is the procedure you follow to collect data in order to answer your research questions or test your stated hypothesis. Now, based on this approach, we have the following 6 types of research. One of them is historical research. The second one is survey. The third one is correlational research. The fourth one is case study research. The fifth one is causal comparative research. And the sixth one is experimental research. We are going to explain all this briefly. Now, I have provided a parameter by which research types can be explained based on design. One of them is the purpose or aim. 2 is whether you manipulated variables. And 3, whether there is generalization of results. Now, what is the purpose or aim of research? This is the objective of the research, what you want to do. For example, in an experimental research, you may want to look at how differential treatment of research subjects can bring about a given change. For example, those of you in science, you carry out experiment by planting seed in 2 different soil. The purpose or aim is to look at the effect of type of soil on the germination of seeds. For us as teacher, you might also be looking at how different methods of teaching can bring about differential performance of students. In this case, you can look at two teaching methods: demonstration method of teaching or lecture method. The aim is to establish which method will bring about a better performance of learners.
Hi there. Just in case you have any question, kindly drop them in the comment section and we will respond as soon as possible. Keep learning.
Now, the second parameter that we will discuss now is manipulation of variables. What is manipulation of variables? This has to do with how we treat a variable in two or more ways. For example, teaching method is a variable. We manipulate teaching method by either using lecture method or demonstration method. When you do that in the process of research, you are said to be manipulating variables. That can be done only in experimental condition. Now, the other one is generalizability of results. Generalizability has to do with how you can apply the outcome of your research from the subject matter, that is, those people that are involved in the experimentation, to the similar group of persons who are not involved. Put in a more professional way, when we carry out research, we draw sample from population. Now, generalization implies taking the findings you had from your sample back to your population. These are the parameters by which we are going to differentiate these 6 types of research. Now, we look at them one after the other. For historical research, for example, there is no manipulation of variables. The purpose is to look at the events that happened in the past. You don't manipulate the variables. Then you don't generalize beyond the historical situation which you studied. Now, survey is also looked at. The purpose of survey is to look at a problem in a large sample of cases. There is no manipulation of variables, and you can generalize your findings from the sample studied to the population from where you drew it. Now, correlational research looks at the relationship between 2 or more variables without establishing a cause-effect relationship. Now, in it, there is no manipulation of variables. You can also generalize from the sample you studied to the population from where the sample was drawn. Now, the last case we are going to look at is case study research. The aim is to study a problem in a single case. It can be one person that has the given problem. It can also be an institution or an object of interest. Now, there is no manipulation of variables, and you cannot generalize beyond the case that you studied. Now, we want to look at experimental research. Experimental research is the only type of research that the aim is to study a cause-effect relationship. In other words, you want to establish whether a given action is exactly responsible for the observation that you made. Now, there is manipulation of variables. Experimental research is the only type of research in which variables are manipulated. Generalization, you can generalize your findings from the research subject to similar condition or the population from where such samples are drawn. So that brings us to the last objective in this unit. Like I mentioned earlier, there is an other aspect of research known as exploratory research. It is very close to experimental research. That is why we must explain it here to enable listeners get a clear understanding of how these terms are used. For those of you who are doing first degree, even at the NC level, masters and PhD, when you go to your department and you are presenting your proposal defense, you are usually asked to identify your dependent and independent variables. Now, many of you find it difficult to do that. The reason is not because you don't know what is an independent variable, but because not every research has dependent and independent variable. Such research which do not have independent and dependent variable are called exploratory research. For example, a student is researching on assessment of students' competence in educational research. Assessment of students' competence in educational research. In this kind of research, the student is not out to solve any particular pressing problem. He just wants to get at the problems as they exist within the population. Now, that kind of research does not have an independent or dependent variable. But assuming you have found out that one of the explored problems is that students find it difficult to do literature review using textbooks. Now you can carry out a research on the use of print media and electronic media in literature review and how it brings about effectiveness in research. There you can have experimental research in which you define the dependent and independent variable. In this case, the independent variable becomes medium of literature, while the dependent variable is effectiveness in literature review. My listeners, we've come to the end of this unit, and subsequently we will dwell in the other aspects of research. I expect to see you in the next presentation. Please subscribe.
Thanks for watching Curriculum and Beyond, the online campus. If you learned something today, please subscribe, like, and turn on the notification bell so you get notified when we have something new.